we're launching our first ever seminar event, the Fine Homebuilding Summit. Join us October 2nd through the 4th in Southbridge, Massachusetts, as 12 of the building industry's most notable experts will offer more than 50 hours of presentations. Our goal? To explore advanced design principles, discover cutting-edge construction materials, and share trusted techniques. Space for this event is limited and expected to sell out fast. Don't wait. Visit finehomebuilding.com/summit to pre-register. That's finehomebuilding.com/summit.
I think Matt might be able to best him on this one.
So I immediately was intrigued by this letter. What, you've seen bigger cock blobs?
I think Matt's made bigger cock blobs. That's his favorite
I think that's
building
when
material.
I actually am a cock blob come to life. I'm like Frosty the Snowman.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. I'm joined by Kylie Jacques, Design Editor.
Hello.
Matt Milham, Deputy Editor.
What up?
And producer Jeff Rose.
Hello.
Please email us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Well, we got some interesting letters this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we should probably get right into that.
Yeah, let's do that.
So this comes from...
You don't want to explain why there's beer sitting in front of us?
I think that's probably coming up in 1 second.
Okay. Seems like a good opener
I was
to me.
gonna actually ignore it and see if anyone noticed.
Yeah.
But we should probably talk about that.
It's an audio format. Nobody can see that
That's
there's
true.
a six-pack sitting on the table.
So the reason for the six-pack is we got a letter from one of the podcast listeners about how does a Koozie or Cozy, depending on where you're from, I think.
Yeah.
Keep your beer warm. Is it because it's insulating it from the warmer outdoor air or outside air, or is it because it's a thermal break from your hand that would transfer heat to the can? And so we're doing a little science experiment, and we'll get into more of that later.
Mm-hmm. Just 56 degrees. That's the baseline that everybody needs to keep in their head.
That's where we started at.
That's where we're at right now. Yep.
And we measured that both with a thermographic camera and an IR thermometer.
Yeah.
Because we're scientific.
Yeah,
These
we're
guys have
nerds.
been dorking out on this like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Who's the
This is
listener?
the best question ever.
What's his name?
Yeah, what is his name?
We'll get to that.
Okay,
No.
all right.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump the gun.
So let's first hear from Craig, who's the owner of an 1890 money pit in Brampton, Ontario, Canada. Hey, gang, I have a bone to pick with you about the coverage of T-studs on episode 186. Namely, thanks a lot, Patrick, for squashing my excitement about this innovative product. As a longtime Fine Homebuilding reader and podcast listener, I've been along for the ride as the high-performance building field matures. I've joined the FHB podcasters. What are you people anyways, editors? That seems odd in this context.
I agree.
I don't know what else to call us, right? And their frustration at both traditionalists and hacks for the reluctance, even downright refusal to embrace new methods. Consequently, several weeks ago when I heard about T-studs, I immediately began slotting them into my imagined renovations. I thought that by ordering naked T-studs, running plumbing and electrical would be a breeze. And when all was said and done, I could have an insulation contractor come spray foam everything in one shot, and I'd be good indefinitely. In theory, it seemed to me that the resulting wall would be rigid, strong, good on sound, good for HVAC all around, and great for detailing. It has wide surfaces for drywall, and it's thinner than many framed walls with similar R values, making it easier to detail windows and doors. Then along came Patrick. You didn't like that plumbers and electricians would be working in the dark about the dowels and could cause you a lot of problems. If the studs were installed with dowels lined up as recommended, I don't see this as a problem. If the studs are installed naked, then you can see everything and skip drilling altogether. I think mechanical contractors would like that. If the studs were filled with foam, you could poke through them with an awl to figure out the dowel locations. I've met a lot of electricians and plumbers, and while many were obstinate, none were stupid. If you have to explain things once or twice, then you have to. He's really let me have it, huh? Another major concern you had was the need for gigantic nails. This is an entirely legitimate concern. As a matter of fact, I also agree with you detailing concerns you brought up. However, I think the tone of your conclusion was unfortunate. The conclusion for me that is a great product to start introducing as a novelty or as the main go-to for a business, but maybe it's not ready for the mass market. I think you really miss an opportunity to celebrate the fact that T-Stud represents a manufacturer's attempt to work with builders to accomplish their goals. Introducing T-Studs into construction may be a little finicky right now and more expensive, but does it or does it not produce a better wall? So props to Kylie for calling Patrick out by saying that she'd like to see someone speak about the positive attributes of T-Studs, and low-grade shame on Patrick for imperiously. I had to look up what imperiously means.
Even though you're an editor.
Do you know what that means? Have you heard that word?
Imperiously.
Imperious.
I think its
it's
basis is imperial, as in like from the top down, like you're just, condescending maybe.
Measuring, I think it means you measure everything in inches.
Stop it. I had to think about that, but I'm like, what are you talking about? And for imperiously telling her to ask the manufacturer and for not taking a more fair approach to the product's evaluation. And that's from Craig, the owner of an 1890 Money Pit in Brampton, Ontario, Canada. And he writes, P.S. General props for Kylie for calling Patrick, Matthew, and Justin out on their flim-flammery. I love when people write into you guys about something you've done a couple dozen times. Then Kylie pipes up to say, I've never done this, so I looked it up. And according to the National Organization for So-and-so, there's a definitive answer/resource for your question. Inevitably, Patrick or Matt say, who knew? On to the next question.
I think he's giving me more credit than I deserve.
He says, keep
thanks,
him
Craig.
honest, Kylie. That's what he says. That's great.
Well, this did start a whole conversation between Craig and I, and then I got Mark Sloot, an architect, involved, and I wound up writing a
blog about
blog post.
So we'll link that on the podcast page. Mm-hmm. And maybe I was being unfair, maybe not, but certainly mine is not the only opinion, and certainly mine doesn't matter at all. Really,
you just have a soapbox. That's all.
I got a soapbox. Well, it's a microphone. It's even better.
Imperiously means domineering in a haughty manner, dictatorial, overbearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
FYI.
I would never admit to being that.
I would never accuse you of that.
Then we heard from Rob in Jacksonville, Illinois. He says, hello all, I just wanted to reach out and thank you for the podcast. I was a custom home builder and remodeler for 20 years until I started having back issues a couple of years ago. I finally gave into the fact that building houses was no longer a realistic career path. I sold my business, got a spinal fusion, and took a job as an energy assessor through the Illinois Home Weatherization Assistance Program. After getting hired, all energy assessors complete a 10-week certification program through the University of Illinois at their Indoor Climate Training and Research Center. Now, does that sound like an awesome field trip or what?
I bet.
What do you think they do there? Like seal around windows and stuff?
I hope so. I hope they're building tiny little houses
And
in
all
all different kinds
work.
of ways, and just trying to figure out how things work and what does
I
and
bet
what
they
doesn't
use
work.
T-studs.
Yeah, they probably tried it out. They're probably like, building a tiny house with this is a pain in the
sounds
ass. You
terrible.
lose so much square footage.
Maybe Rob will send us some photographs of what they do there. I think that'd be pretty interesting. Although I built high-end custom homes, he says, for 20 years with a waiting list of clients, I had never heard of thermal bridging, stack effect, or the International Energy Conservation Code. After completing the building science coursework, I was amazed at how dumb I had been all those years. We were very good at doing what we did, but we just didn't know what we didn't know. I feel most good tradespeople want to do their best for their clients, but are largely educated by people trying to sell them products, not always the trustworthy sources. I'm now a BPI certified building analyst, energy assessor, healthy home evaluator, and quality control inspector. To say my viewpoints have changed will be putting it mildly. Illinois Weatherization Assistant Program does a terrific job of taking people with trades experience and giving them an education in building science. People that come to the program from the trades are seen as assets because of their understanding of homes and their work ethic. I wish I had found your podcast a long time ago. Educating the trades is sorely needed. I totally understand your frustration with some contractors. I've been out of it long enough now that when I hear you make fun of things I've done, it doesn't sting quite as bad. Thanks for all you do. Best regards, Rob. Thank you, Rob. That's a good letter. So what do you think about that? What I've noticed about the construction industry is people can be so very sure of stuff that they really don't know anything about. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not testing it, then you don't know what you've got. Like, unless you're putting a thermal camera on it, unless you're putting a blower door on it, unless you're doing like all the diagnostics that you can, you have no idea whether or not you built a good house.
Well, yeah,
unless
agreed.
you tear off the siding like 30 years later and see if you had leaks and stuff like that. I don't know how you have any basis to say what you've said.
Yeah. The common refrain is, well, I've never had problems.
Yeah,
right?
that you've seen, that anybody's told you about.
Right.
Like the house has probably been sold and nobody has any idea who built it.
Who you are.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and remodelers, I feel sometimes make things worse by fixing up what were, time-tested assemblies and then putting new materials without thinking as a system.
Mm-hmm.
On a completely different note, I think this guy made a very admirable career change.
Totally.
I think what he's doing is really interesting, and I like that he's playing off of, or not playing off of, but his time in the field is behooving what he's doing now.
Well, and it's informing his next career.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, yeah.
It's a common scenario. Someone gets, too old to be a contractor or a carpenter, and they need something else to do. This seems like a great fit. You capitalize on their knowledge of the house, and they get a slightly easier time, right?
Yeah.
On their body. All right. So before we get to the beer, and I'm watching it sweat there, and it's making me very thirsty. So we'll keep this brief. Interestingly, the beer question I thought would be a nice end to the program, and then this morning Matt comes up to me. He's like, "I think we should make that the first question," and I immediately assumed it was because you wanted to start drinking beer on the podcast earlier.
No,
it was why.
Because I like science experiments,
and you wanted to some duration.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Because it takes time for the stuff to actually see the change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think the cans are too close together? It's for an effective. Is that affecting the?
Spread them out a little bit.
You need to explain what you're going to do here.
Yeah. So we're just going to see how the temperature changes between these two cans over the roughly hour of the podcast. So we'll take this one out at the end, but it's surrounded.
And you're using what kind of diagnostic tools?
It's one of those little FLIR iPhone cameras.
And where's your gun?
Yeah, it just sticks on.
I have an eye.
Come on. Come on, guys. Show how dorky you are.
Yeah.
I have an infrared thermometer that I bought from Amazon, and it was like $20, and I use it a lot. You know what I use it for?
No.
I can tell how hot a pan is on the stove.
Oh, that's smart.
Boom. Is it hot enough?
Usually
you can also just have your kid touch it.
I was going to say I usually use my hand.
It's super handy. I love the thing. And it'll do some very rudimentary building diagnostics. Like you can detect cold corners and some air leaks that are large. It's cool. Cool gadget.
And the FLIR camera basically just gives you predator vision. There are a bunch of different color profiles you can use on it, but and this particular one I have it set up so that it kind of overlays the color on an actual picture, so you get a little better detail of what you're actually looking at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
and that's not expensive, right? That's what, $200?
This one it might be $199 or
that's what I
$299.
thought.
I can't remember. I've got both versions here, but
do you use
have
it
you
a
found
lot?
it useful?
I use them, frequently. No, mostly
to do what? Explain.
Just to see. A lot of time, over the winter, I was having condensation on my exterior walls where the wall met the ceiling.
Okay.
And in this one area especially, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, and so I was just trying to see what was going on, and it was very cold up there, and so I was just getting all kinds of condensation. And
did you track down where the cold was coming from?
Yeah, it was basically just cold air coming in through the soffit. The insulation had not really been extended out all the way over the top plate there, and so I had a cold spot. I had bridging. And so
I think they're awesome, right? Yeah. And what's fascinating to me is that in my lifetime, those have gone from being something that costs $10,000 to something you can buy for $200.
And clip to a phone.
Yeah. And it's probably more accurate than the $10,000 one.
Of the original, the original ones? Yeah, it's insane. I mean,
how did you set up the original ones without the phone?
So they was just
handheld kind of
standalone unit.
And the first guy who I know who used one was Larry Amata, who's a electrician. And what they used it for was in manufacturing facilities, you want to know if a switch is failing, and it'll be hotter than the others, and you can replace it on a schedule instead of having it have shut down a manufacturing line or whatever you're doing.
That's cool.
Yeah. And the one that he had to be cooled somehow with liquid nitrogen. And maybe people out there who are listening know more about this than I do. But so you had to go around with this cart, and it had this tank of liquid nitrogen, and it kept some component of the thing cold so it would be somewhat accurate. Crazy, right?
Yeah, that's too much. It's not worth it.
But if you have $1 million factory and if you have to shut it down unexpectedly, that's totally worth it.
Yeah, but you're not taking that in the field for anything.
No, it was. Yeah, it lived there, I'm sure.
So what do we got so far, Matt?
Temperature-wise?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Should we read this question?
Yeah, just read the question.
So Brian writes, while working on my new-to-me home with my father, we got into a heated debate on a topic that I feel like the FHB podcast is uniquely suited to handle. And I couldn't agree more.
Patrick and Matt.
Does a Koozie keep your drink cold by insulating the can to keep the cold in, insulation, or does it keep your body heat from transferring through your hand and into the adult soda at thermal break? Love the show. Also, I'm only about 50% sure I understand what a thermal break is, so go easy.
I think he understands what it is.
I think he does too. Yeah. Should we answer the question, or do you guys want to talk about your projects?
No, let's go into this. This is way more fun.
The answer is yes.
It's both.
It's both.
Right?
Yep.
And have we found that the Koozie is doing a better job than the can without one?
It's really hard to tell because I can only kind of.
I should hold one so you can see.
So why don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to hold it the whole show. Is 60 degrees? That is not right.
That's close to what
Actually, I should double fist it. I should hold two.
Oh, right. How is that possible? You're getting 60 degrees too?
Not quite that high, but yeah, it was getting before.
So the problem with the IR thermometer on shiny stuff, like an aluminum can, is it doesn't work. So you can't measure the temperature of glass, for example.
So what'd you bring that thing for?
I'm getting 57.
Because it does work sometimes. I think if I got the right paint. Huh. Anywho. This is science.
Yeah, this may be an experiment that goes way awry.
How can it go awry? We're going to drink the beer.
That's what I mean.
I should tell you all that the brand of beer I picked out, what's it called?
Poor Judgment.
Poor Judgment IPA. I'm like, that's perfect.
POUR. Which is even sillier. It's a pun.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Nerd beer.
Mm-hmm.
Should we go to the question? You guys want to talk about what you went to shoot photographs earlier in the week, right, Kylie?
Oh yeah, yep. I went to Ithaca. Remember when I did that carpentry workshop?
Yeah.
It's the founder of that school.
What's her name?
Maria Klemperer Johnson of Hammerstone School.
And she's got chops.
She's got a shop and she's got chops.
That's awesome.
She's got chops in her shop.
She's got chops. She's a criminal.
And she was.
I feel funny holding two beers.
I think it's awesome. I think we should. This is the new normal.
So she had read a Fine Homebuilding article in 2016, which actually I'll make mention of again later, but about scribing rails on a porch.
Yep.
Up to in the article it was a square post, but in this case it's a tapered column.
Way harder.
Yeah. So she figured out a method for doing that.
That's awesome.
And there's her jig. So I went to shoot the making of the jig and the final project. So yeah,
that is
it was really fun.
Extremely useful thing. I wouldn't have any idea how to do that.
Yeah, she figured it out on her own, and then it was fun after the fact. We rode around in the neighborhood and we looked at all of the
and made fun of bad architecture.
Made fun of the hodgepodge way in which people normally do it. So
I've seen some pretty hacky ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brackets seem common.
Right.
Hardware.
That's a hard thing to figure out.
Mm-hmm. But there will be an article coming out.
I think I would make a half dozen bad templates until I got it right.
Yeah. Guess and check.
Right.
Lots of bearings on that bit.
Yeah, I bet.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Yeah. So when do we see that in the magazine, you figure?
It's in development, so I'm not sure which issue it'll be.
Okay, well, we'll keep folks posted that, I hope. Yeah. And you're on the roof 2.0 on your gazebo.
Yeah. Well, I have plans for the next version.
Okay, so you haven't framed it.
I haven't framed it.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I haven't framed it.
I haven't seen it in a bit. Where are you?
It's nowhere. It's the exact same place. Yeah, well, you were on the last
she
time?
wasn't
No,
on.
you weren't on the last
right.
time. Yeah, so there's basically a 4x6 top plate
Okay.
on top of the posts now that is going to carry all of the rafters. And I had originally tried double 2x6s and I was going to have 5 main rafters on this thing. Now I'm going to do 20 2x4
That's cool.
rafters. So you'll get much more of the pinwheel effect of the reciprocal roof, but none of that stuff's up yet because I've been busy doing other stuff. So,
what have you been doing?
Picking up the wood for one.
Yeah. Taking the wood down.
Yeah, taking the wood down. Yeah, nursing my ankle.
Can you use that wood?
The
was
stuff
up
that I
there?
took down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll reuse it somewhere else. But I don't. It's glued together with tight grab and also nailed.
Oh, that's never coming apart.
No, it's not.
That's
You can't
firewood.
ever get it apart. Like
That's
it's got to
firewood.
use a 2x6 beam somewhere. Build a
That'll
bunch
come
of
in handy.
Yeah, build some little bridges.
Oh, that's gonna be sweet.
Yeah.
I think you should make a workbench. You could laminate them all together.
I already have one of those.
I think you need another one. I'd forgot you made a workbench that way.
But actually, yeah, why not? I'll do
Right?
another one of those.
Why not?
Yeah.
It's better than throwing it away.
Yeah, for sure.
So I moved into my bedroom on Tuesday, and it's fantastic. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So now I have to make cabinet doors for the wardrobe cabinet, and I think I'm going to do bridal joints because these are pretty big doors. They're 2 foot wide and I don't know, 5 foot tall, I want to say. And so a bridal joint is like a half lap, except the half lap goes in the center of the.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like a mortise and tenon, except that it's not completely housed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's, 2 sides are open, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a bridal joint illustration, and I think that'll work great. It doesn't allow for the right movement, but Matt Kenny, my trusted woodworker friend, says it's going to not be a problem.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
don't
mean?
think it is.
Listen, laugh
So
at
when
it.
you have a style and rail meeting, right, the wood grain is perpendicular to each other, right? Wood grain, when it takes on moisture, expands across its width, right? So, and when you have a style and rail, they're moving in 2 different directions. And if you have a glued joint, the theory is that it could break apart from these stresses. But he tells me to get on with my life and just glue it.
I did a bunch of window screens, and I used bridal joints because this was in the very beginning before I'd gone to school for any of this and knew anything. And I was like,
This is going to be strong.
This is something that I was just like, this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, and I can do this on this table saw that I have access to.
Right.
And they were fine. I mean, I had them on that house for 2 years before I moved, and I left
And
it
this was
behind,
outside.
And they were outside. They got rained on.
Yeah, so mine is
nonstop,
going to
and
be
they
in
were
a
fine.
relatively climate-controlled environment. So it
Yeah.
seems like that would be even safer.
Yeah.
Are they difficult to do?
No, you can do it on a table saw. You need a tenoning jig, right, to hold the one part vertical, so and you pass it over the saw blade. And I saw a guy made one for the same DeWalt table saw that I have, so I'm just going to do that. I'm going to make it out of plywood.
Going to use that new table saw?
I might, if the fence is shaped correctly. They aren't always. So Kylie is referring to. I can't talk about that actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Forget I said anything.
We got a fancy new table saw that I'm not allowed to talk about. So that's the next strategy here. How's our beer status there, Cam man?
Oh,
You know,
man.
we should have turned the air conditioning off in here
It is right
to simulate
I think
an
it is.
outdoor environment.
Jeff
I don't
always
hear it.
turns it off because of the noise.
Yeah.
Why is it so
I
cold?
have trouble believing that.
I had to stop holding the cans because I'm so cold.
I'm like sweating over
Well,
here.
it was on for an hour
Probably
before.
just flop sweat.
I don't know why they're 60 degrees. Shouldn't they be like 40?
They started out at what, 54,
Yeah.
56?
56, you said.
56.
And
yeah.
are they any different?
They are
61 there.
It's only been, what, 10 minutes?
It seems like forever. I'm looking at this beer. It's just calling my name.
Yeah. Whatever I'm getting with this right now is definitely, because according to this, the temperature's dropping. That can't be right.
I swear to
So
God,
these gadgets are useless.
I swear to God, the Koozie one is reading hotter on my machine here. 61.
I mean, the thing is, I
Just
can
put it to your
see a
forehead.
warm spot on top of this thing. Like, I can tell that that's hot, because in the picture.
Well, because that's the pull tab. It's
Yeah.
theoretically like less coupled.
Right, but you are getting like,
Am I making? Are you? You're looking at me like you're an idiot.
but it's transmitting whatever, the heat is getting to that part first and then radiating through the rest of the can.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's like a little radiator.
But up there, it's like 70 degrees, basically 72.8 degrees at the tab.
Really? Mm-hmm. That surprises me.
The other one's just as hot.
Do you think it's our studio lights? Maybe.
What about this?
They're fluorescents. I mean,
sorry, Jeff.
Actually, it's
I'm
not
glad you're
just
smart,
up, but it's still hot.
Just like you're an idiot. Oh, that's funny. All right, let's move along. We'll check back with that. Hello, podcast. While recently considering a new home for our family, I noticed that the cellar door, the bulkhead door, had no insulation or weather stripping, which I found pretty shocking. This one in particular was in good shape, having been installed recently, but shouldn't a steel exterior door have weather stripping and insulation? In Zone 6, what would you recommend as the best way to insulate and air seal to help keep this basement and the house more comfortable? So this is one of those things that when I see, I want to lose my mind. Right?
Yeah.
A bulkhead door is not meant to be the separation between the indoors and outdoors. It's meant to keep water out of the hole in the ground that leads to the real door that should be in the basement that is apparently not here.
Exactly.
So,
like, you can air seal it as well as you want. That thing is still
it's
like
a steel radiator.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's going to suck all of the heat out of that space and radiate it to the outside.
Yes. So the answer is to put an entry door in the opening at the bottom of the bulkhead basement way.
And
Yeah.
make sure it closes. I have such a door that I can't. It won't stay closed.
Yeah.
So it's useless.
The one really annoying thing.
You need to fix that.
I know I do.
Yeah.
I know.
For security too.
Well,
They can't get
there's-
into the house.
They can't get into the house. There's nothing in the basement.
You're gonna have
but
squatters living in there. You're gonna have people in the basement.
It's very irritating that the door doesn't close. I've done everything I can think of to try to make it close. That's short of getting a new door, and it's just
Oh, it just needs a hardware adjustment.
You think?
Yeah.
Did I show it to you?
No.
Oh.
But it's probably not a
I'm
big
sure we
deal.
can fix
But
this.
you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's useless to even have it if you're not going to
Yeah,
close,
if it
be
doesn't
able
work.
to seal it. you
Yeah.
know.
But I have come across this because I lived in a house like this where it wasn't really designed with all of this sort of like accounted for, like the fact that you need that door at the bottom. And it had the door at the bottom. It had
Right.
a man door, an insulated steel door at the bottom of the stairs into the basement. But there was no landing, and so you had to like basically reach way down to grab the
Oh
knob
yeah, it's
for
awful.
this thing.
Yeah.
And so, what do? You basically just build a little box inside, kind of.
I think you just struggle with it and just like treat it as a door you don't use very often, right?
Yeah.
It's like meant to get the water heater or the boiler out of the basement. It's not meant to like come into your house. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's what. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, it can be annoying if there's not really space there
Yeah.
for that door. You know, if it wasn't considered before you put that bulkhead door in, and somebody thought like the bulkhead door is going to be the door, then it can be a little bit of a pain to retrofit. You may end up losing some basement space in order to make that a comfortable door to use.
I like your solution of bringing the door inside the basement and having a little like vestibule there or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And I'm very cavalier about saying you need a door there, and the problem is they're often odd sized, right? They're
Yeah.
not full height. So, but you can cut down a steel door. The new Diablo Steel Demon circular saw blades cut steel doors like butter. I know because I did it for a photo that we had in the magazine on entry doors, right? We had a corner section, and I cut it myself, and it's super easy. So, you cut the top, not the bottom, because you need the bottom to have the weather stripping, right? At the top, you can have just the foam, or you can dig out the foam and put wood back in there, and it seals against the weather strip on the head jam. And you cut down the side jams and put the head jam back on, and you're done.
Did you run that blade in a regular circ saw? Or
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know they make metal cutting circular saws
They
too
do.
that
They
run
do.
at a different RPM.
They're
right?
slower,
Yeah.
and they do a better job of collecting the chips. And I can tell you that the
Yeah.
freaking red hot chips spraying onto your arm are kind of fun.
Yeah, they kind of have like a hood over it that kind of like prevents all that from flying around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you always recommend using an old circ saw if you're going to be cutting metal? Don't you guys always say that?
I do that for masonry stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, because I do just run like a masonry blade in a really old skill saw. But
I don't care. I've had my hypoid Makita saw since 1994. So, I mean, like, if I haven't killed it yet, it's fine.
yeah.
You
those
might
things
be the
run-
most economical guy I've ever met.
Well, I mean, I don't use it every day like people who do, right? Who frame houses, but it's gotten a lot of use, especially when I was younger. You know, that stuff just lasts forever.
Yeah.
Those Makita saws are legendary. And the 5007, the Sidewinder version, I mean, those people use those for 10 years every day. Amazing. Do you think we answered this question adequately? You need a door there.
Yeah.
Put a real door.
Or your other option, just fill the entire space underneath
Spray
the
foam.
bulkhead doors with spray foam
Or
and forget about it.
foam packing peanuts, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Even if you do something seasonally, right? Like the winter, you scrub a piece of plywood with foam insulation on it, or just something like that. It's going to be better than what you got.
Yeah, but you'd want that probably flush with the top of whatever sort of like foundation is supporting that door rather than on the door, on the bulkhead door, I mean.
No, I meant on the
or on
opening.
the interior
and the
of
hole
opening.
through the foundation.
Yeah,
if you could put it over that.
Yep. Even better.
Yeah. That
could
drives
do
me
that.
crazy.
I could do that in my house for a story. That'd be a good little something.
Yes.
2-pager.
Making your own basement door.
Well, sealing off your bulkhead.
It's a problem. Okay, so Luke writes in, good evening, FHB crew. This is the photo of the largest massive caulking I've seen in my life. So
I think Matt might be able to best him on this one.
So I immediately was intrigued by this letter. What, you've seen bigger caulk blobs?
I think Matt's made bigger caulk blobs. That's his favorite
I think that's
building
when I
material.
actually am a caulk blob come to life. I'm like Frosty the Snowman.
There are layers of paint and wrought wood stuck to it, but there's a chunk of caulk at least 3 inches by 2 inches by 1.5 inches. The homeowner hoped to prevent rot by sealing the caulk and paint, and sealed it. And sealed it. He did, considering the wood was still wet in areas when it is approaching August in the Pacific Northwest in the Willamette Valley, where he says it's hot and dry. I've been asked to help with this project. I just built a similar staircase to a similar wood porch, but I built mine to allow water runoff. This staircase was oddly and poorly framed, contributing to its demise. It looks similar to the picture I pulled off the web with the blue siding. So all these photos will be up on the podcast page, and you'll see them in YouTube, also in the slideshow. Is there a right way to frame this style of stair with side walls? And if there isn't, how can I best change this setup without messing up with the aesthetic? Also, I will attach a photo of the staircase brown treads I just built. Please critique it as necessary. I built what made sense, although I am confident in its framing. I don't know if that means he's not confident in the rest of it, but if you need more info or pictures, just ask. So, Luke, that's a great question. How do you build outdoor stairs so they don't rot?
My solution, masonry.
Masonry is a good solution.
Because, I mean, brick looks great. You can, like, cap with stone if you wanted a, some sort of contrasting thing there. You can keep that same, like, reverse V. You can have the stone cut that way. So that it sheds water in both directions. And I think it's just going to last in the weather a lot better than wood, because wood is going to rot. Like any pressure treated stuff that's exposed to weather even is going to rot.
My dear friend and carpenter Scott in Pittsburgh reminded me that porches and porch stairs keep carpenters employed. Like they constantly need work.
Yeah, I grew up in a house that had a big wraparound porch and 2 really wide, maybe like 8-foot wide stairways up onto it.
Sounds lovely.
And I don't remember that thing needing a lot of work, but I do remember, I think at some point it was kind of squishy.
Yeah. I mean, inevitably, like 75 or 100 years, they need to be rebuilt, right? This stuff that I was working on, there was no pressure treating.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And it was because of lead paint, I'm sure was partially the reason, right? Because things don't eat lead paint, and it's durable.
Yeah, but if it has good airflow behind it, it's got a chance at a longer life. But if you're building little walls like this and kind of closing everything in and keeping air away from it, then I think you're just sort of shortening its lifespan.
You don't think that would mess with the aesthetic? Adding stone there?
No.
They got freaking granite walkway.
Yeah, I mean it might.
Right?
No, I think that's just worn concrete. But I mean, I think if they put brick in there, I don't think it would mess with the overall aesthetic of the house. It might.
So
it would definitely change the aesthetic of those
So
stairs.
what if you're a carpenter and not a mason?
Then you make some mason friends. And
what would you do, Patrick?
So I have wood stairs on a couple places on my property, and I think it's best to have risers that aren't completely closed off to the treads. I like to have a space that allows drainage and dirt. There's a noted deck builder, Kim Catchwick. Am I saying his name right, Matt?
No idea.
So he's in the Pacific Northwest and builds decks where they're popular, but the climate is not good for deck building, right? And he always talked about collection zones. You don't want places where dirt can get trapped between framing members or wood boards, right? Because that's what's going to start the cascading effect of rot and decay. So if you can get the things clean and dry, there's a lot less likelihood of that. So you need to have risers that prevent the 4-inch sphere from passing through, right? Which is the size of a baby's head. But you can leave them open to a degree so you get some airflow and some drainage and wash away the dirt that would collect in the cracks otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Not big enough to throw a cat through, though.
Not big enough to throw a cat through. Don't write letters about the cat reference. That's an old expression. We would never consider throwing a cat in a podcast.
Podcast.
I like the walls there. I think that contributes to the problem, as Matt suggests, though, in getting good airflow. I think it would be better to have skirting that was open instead of the lap siding on the side, right? You could still have those walls, but if you ran vertical skirting with gaps between the boards or horizontal boards with gaps, I think it would help a lot with the drying and reduce the likelihood of rotting.
Yeah. I mean, they're just trying to match and wrap that siding detail around onto those things. And while that does look nice, I don't think that's necessarily a design for life.
Unfortunately, some things that look great just do make things not last as long. That's a thing.
And some things that last for a long time look awful.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I like this masonry idea. I think...
I can't picture it.
So, I don't know. Brick steps? It's super common in the South. We don't see it much up here in New England.
Yeah.
I just can't see it in relation to the porch floor.
I could tell you...
the change in material seems weird to me.
I think, granite steps are cool, but God, they're expensive too.
Mm-hmm.
You could build the wood staircase 4 times by the time you paid for the
granite. And you will. Because that granite's going to be there for 2,000 years minimum.
Yeah.
I don't see little porch, the walls, that treatment. I haven't seen that a lot. Have you guys?
There's always geraniums on those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of these things are regional, and I don't think it's a thing that you probably see around here, but it looks like something you might see
Chicago.
more often on bungalows in the Midwest or something like that.
It looks like Chicago to me.
Yeah.
Where was he from, Luke? He doesn't say.
No.
Your photos were helpful, Luke. Thank you. Okay, so now we have, how about a beer update?
Oh, man. Turn the phone on.
63.1. Okay, on that guy. 63.6 on that. I swear to God, the one with the Koozie is warmer than the one without it.
It's a blanket.
So it's not surprising that this is of great interest to me, right?
Of course.
It's combining my 2 favorite things, which is construction and beer.
I did not know this about you. You've been talking about beer for an entire week. I didn't know you were such a beer lover.
The question is great.
Right.
So does the Koozie make the beer give up its cold on the top more readily than it would if it didn't have it on there? Because all of a sudden it's colder, right? Jeff is looking like I'm talking with 2 heads all of a sudden. Does that make sense?
I think I get what you're going for. Like you're saying, the heat that's being transferred to the top. It's because the part where there's no liquid is warming up the fastest, at the top.
That's my assumption, right? Because there's no beer there.
And then you think the Koozie is just kind of holding all that, allowing that heat to transfer to the can more easily.
I'm saying it's because the top is colder, right? There's a greater delta T between it and the Koozie part of the can, so it would more readily take on heat from the ambient temperature. So I think there's way more to this discussion.
You're talking about this little lip right here.
I'm talking about the whole top of the can that doesn't have Koozie around it, right?
Yeah.
There's 3/4 of an inch that's exposed.
Are we near the end? Should I just take this out and see what our temperature difference is?
No, we can't. We have one more question.
Oh, man.
So we heard from Doug from Toronto. FHB podcast crew. I recently discovered the podcast and I'm enjoying listening on my way to and from work, and I find them informative and entertaining. I like that you often mention suppliers and products by name. We have a screened back porch, 11 by 12, with a conventionally framed substructure with rigid foam in between the floor joists, plywood on top, and then worn-out sheet vinyl on top of that, and carpeting on top of that. When it rains or snows, the carpet absorbs the water and then dries out. That sounds horrible. I hate stepping on wet carpet more than anything in my life.
Squish, yeah,
that
me
is
too.
the worst.
Yeah.
The plywood floor is in very good condition for its 20-plus years of age. The floor is pretty level, and there are no drains. The walls are aluminum framed sections about 3 foot wide with solid aluminum panels on the lower 18 inches. There's a French outswing hinged patio door that connects the kitchen to the porch, and the floors are at the same level. The plywood floor is under the wall, so removing it will be difficult. What are some good suitable options for new flooring material? If I use some type of vinyl tile and the water gets through, it might not dry fast enough to prevent rot. If we use sheet vinyl and no drain, we might have a shallow swimming pool some days. He says, I think it would run out the exit door before it came into the kitchen. That's helpful. And we would have to take care of to seal to the bottom of the wall. There is a new modified concrete product that goes on thin and has been used for a finished wall and showers and floors, etc. Any experience with it on a floor? We're leaning towards outdoor carpeting because it has worked in the past. Any other thoughts?
Doesn't sound like it's worked very well.
Well, I don't know that the carpet is what's really worked. I think the old vinyl is what's worked.
I agree. It's watertight.
Yeah. But I'm really confused by the rigid foam installation
because there's no windows.
Because it's a screened porch, and it's getting soaked in there. It's obviously open to the outside.
I don't understand.
So why do you have? Was there a plan at some point to close this space in?
Maybe they were planning for glassing it in.
It's funny.
I don't know.
The great deal of time I've thinking about this, that didn't even occur to me that makes no sense.
All the weird stuff always is what sticks out to me. I'm always what? Why? But
there might be more to it than he's telling us. Maybe they put in panels in the winter or the fall or whatever to make it a warmer space. I don't know.
Yeah, and that may be the case.
I think tile is fantastic for this application, right? But you need to have a waterproofing membrane, just like your vinyl substituted as a waterproofing layer in the past, right? That was what made this work.
Yeah, if he wants to stick with a carpet, first I might take all that sheet vinyl up just to make sure that the
it's not
plywood's
punky.
Okay. Yeah. And then I would just put exactly the same assembly down that you had that worked.
That's what
just
it
more
sounds
sheet
like he's
vinyl and
leaning
more
toward.
carpet.
It seems to make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know about it, what was his name? Oh my God. Doug.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's this product called Duradeck, which is exactly what you have, except it's made for this application. It's vinyl flooring made for decks with living space underneath. And I emailed with Doug earlier today, and he expressed an interest in this was work he wanted to do himself. I think the Duradeck process has to be done by one of their dealers, but I know you could put tile down here and solve the problem. I would want a floor drain in there, but if you don't mind the floor being wet and you can mop it up when you want to use the space after a rain, whatever, it's fine.
But if you're going to put a floor drain in, you'd really want that floor sloped in some way to the drain, and I don't know how you're going to get that if it's conventionally framed.
Especially with the floor being the same level as the kitchen. If he had any, if it was slightly lower even, he could slope it one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. The drain would be way less effective if it was a flat floor.
What about rubber tiles?
So you put that picture in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what do you know about those things?
Just, it seemed like a solution here.
I don't know, because I don't think they're waterproof. That's the problem.
Oh, I thought they were waterproof. That's the whole point.
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't think they lock together that way, but maybe they do.
Yeah.
If they seal on the edge, then maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to have a thickness that's going to be a potential problem with the patio door and the kitchen floor, right? They're going to be at least a couple inches tall, thick.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Same with the tile. Right? Tile's a quarter inch plus probably the mortar bed, so 3/8 for thin set.
Yeah.
So what do you do there?
Hope
Raise
that there's
the threshold?
enough. Hope that there's enough room to put it without raising the door.
Yeah. But if you did like a mud bed, you could
slope it.
You could slope the whole thing, put a big linear drain there, right?
You guys are creating so many. You know he's going to put carpet down.
He's going to put the vinyl flooring and the carpet down. Exactly. And I don't think that. I don't think that's a bad solution. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
Could you get? What do you recommend for a carpet that would maybe not be so squishy?
I'd go to a pool dealer,
that's
a big
good idea.
one,
Yeah.
and get whatever they sell it for, like outdoor living space, right?
Yeah.
Because these things are meant to be wet.
Yeah, it's probably like polyethylene, like fake
Or
grass.
polypropylene.
Yeah, polypropylene also.
Well, that's what he was talking about, fake grass. I think that's what he meant by indoor-outdoor carpeting. That's what I always associate with that.
Yeah.
I hate that stuff. We had that on my porch growing up.
Yeah, I don't care for it either. Feels yucky on your feet.
It feels yucky on your feet.
I'm sure you can get it in all kinds of colors, though.
Oh, it's awesome.
And then just wear socks
Magenta.
so they can get all wet.
Wet socks,
Yeah.
wet carpet. That's the worst.
Wet koozies.
So let's try that. Take the beer out of the koozies and see what the ultimate result is. So Brian, I think you understood very well what a thermal break is based on your email, and that was a great question. Thank you.
Doug also wanted to ask. I'm assuming he was talking
Thank
about
you
Brian
for reminding
Pontilillo.
me. Go ahead.
Is that I don't?
Yes,
is that
he
who
is.
he's referencing?
Yeah.
So yes, the answer is I used a hand truck, and I can't say it was easy. So, what was he referring to exactly?
So he asked how did Brian move those very large 36 by 48 inch patio stones he talked about way back in one of the early podcasts. And so I emailed Brian to ask if he knew what he was talking about. And
I
Brian
can't picture that at his house. Did he?
I don't know.
Doesn't have a,
Brian said, yes, I used a hand truck. I can't say it was easy. That's all he said.
What about the cans you were touching?
I wasn't holding them for very long because I was freezing.
Well, let's see, though.
Oh. Yeah,
Because they had the same treatment anyway. So if this one is colder than that one, we can conclude that the thermal bridging.
I've never been sold on the whole Koozie thing, but I will say they
you
are
didn't
nice.
like holding that cold can, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I finally appreciate that.
I had a question this morning also, like, does the Koozie work similarly with a bottle? Like, because glass is a far superior insulator than aluminum. So is it as effective? We might be able to test that next episode.
I was going to say, that's what I was picturing. I thought you were going to bring glass bottles.
There is a pretty noticeable difference on the ones that you were touching.
Really?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't hold them for
The one that
very
was
long.
in the Koozie is probably 65 right now. I don't know.
This is so fun. This might be my best day of work
I have a
ever.
feeling this is how we're going to
Not
wrap
really,
up
actually.
the rest
this one's
of the
only
day.
still only, like, I can't tell what this temperature is doing. It's going all over the place. It said 67 for a while, but now it's down to 64. So it made a liar of me. I don't know.
They're not different.
They're not really different. No, they're basically exactly the same.
Let's try the ones that were not handled by Kylie.
The top, there's definitely a big difference at the top. The one that wasn't in the Koozie is up to like 70.
I'm going to start calling you the Koozie.
The 77 degrees. So probably roughly the temperature of this room. The other one, not much better, 75. Yeah, 75, 2 degree difference.
Are we missing something? Because I don't think that's correct.
It doesn't seem like it.
That can is not 75 degrees. Let me feel it.
The top of it?
Let me feel, please.
It certainly doesn't feel 75 degrees.
No. I mean, no way.
I don't know. The top of this one definitely
It's warmer.
feels like room temperature.
So what's this side? So I get 65.
Yeah.
That's not
roughly what I'm
65
getting.
degrees. So the can,
No.
the IR stuff doesn't work with
yeah,
the
it's
can.
reflecting
Room
off the
temperature,
can.
Jeff.
All right.
I have no idea. Yeah.
So we need a new,
thermostat.
we need a new approach.
This is totally bogus, all of it.
Yeah.
We can just drink the beer. And,
Well, no, it means we need to do this experiment over again.
Oh my God, I don't think I can stand it.
We're going to have to get like rectal thermometers.
Only
Just
you,
touch them
Matt.
against the can.
So those of you listening who are clearly smarter than us, can you tell me why the IR thermometer and the IR camera is not working with the aluminum can that's painted? I mean, I can understand if it was bare aluminum and reflective, but like, why is this not working?
I wonder if it's just reflective enough.
It might be. I
don't
mean,
know.
that's the answer, right?
That's the answer I have right now.
Till we get the real answer.
Yeah.
Oh, that was fun. All right, so this is a serious note, but this is something you all should watch if you want a dramatic demonstration on uplift or the pressurization and roof failure of a hotel on Cape Cod in Massachusetts last week, I believe. This hotel lost a huge section of relatively flat roof with a big honking overhang, and this community had tornadoes, and somebody was filming with their phone while they were in this hotel and captured the thing blowing off, and it is dramatic. It just lifted off in one piece and sailed away.
Fiberglass bats just going every which way.
Oh, it was crazy. And apparently no one was hurt miraculously, but it demonstrates the importance of hold downs on roof assemblies, because I think a few $100s in hardware would have prevented this and saved the building, and like they'd still have hotel rooms in service.
Yeah. You see that a lot after storms. And Katrina, I'm thinking of Katrina, the few houses that remained, they talked about the hardware that they used.
Yeah, it's everything. So this place was probably built in the 50s. It's one of those typical motor lodges, right, with the first floor rooms and the second floor balcony and second floor rooms. And looks like every other motor lodge, and these heavy winds blew through. And we'll put a link to some video that shows this on the podcast page, and that is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, pretty dramatic.
I couldn't stop watching it. The clip is like seconds, but it tells you everything you need.
I want to know what happened to the guy that was taking the shot.
Yeah, whoever was taking the video ducked.
Down.
Yeah.
They saw the thing come off, and they were like, I'm stopping right now.
Probably a good instinct.
Yeah, probably.
I wanted
to see more.
I wanted to see more too. I wanted to see where the roof ended up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the part that was most dangerous, I would imagine.
Oh my God! Like it's got to be a ton of roof.
Yeah. What do you think that section of roof measured?
It was long.
It was very long.
And I bet it was 12 or 14 feet deep, maybe longer.
Yeah. I would say, what would you say? Maybe 100 feet long, 80 feet long?
Oh, it was a lot. It was a bunch of hotel rooms.
Yeah,
so.
It was probably like 10 rooms long.
Yeah.
And I found it interesting that it wasn't the whole roof that came off. It was like half of it. It seemed like it broke down the middle. Like I saw drone footage. I don't know if it was in that same webpage that I shared with you guys, but they were looking at the structure after it, and half the roof was still there. The membrane was ripped off, I presume, with the other piece, but the framing was still there, and the insulation layer that was on top. Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks to Matt, Rob, and Jeff for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us. However you're listening, it helps other folks find our podcast. Happy building. Thanks for listening. Let's have some of that beer.
You're going to have to splice in my name rather than Rob's.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Should I do that again? Let's just do that again.
Okay. You have enough of them that you could probably just put one.
Let me just read it again.
We'll be wearing different things. Yeah.
It'll be easier for Jeff to do that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I just read what was here.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Matt, Rob. I'm an idiot.
This is all staying, by the way.
Oh, my God.
This is all the in-read now.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Matt, Kylie, and Jeff for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com, and please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Can we have some of that beer now? Oh, yeah.
Oh, you guys really are going to drink it. I didn't think you would.